Hey good lifers, welcome back to the channel. Do you think that you need a huge garden to be self-sufficient? Most people think that homesteading is all about the land, but I am here to tell you that that is a myth. I know how frustrating it is to want to grow your own food, to want to preserve your own food, and to try and be a little bit more self-sufficient, but you're living in a small flat or a small house or even a rented house, and you feel like there's not a lot you can do. And you're going to feel like you're a little bit stuck because you're in a smaller house or you're in a flat or you're even in rented accommodation. I know exactly how that feels. I know that you feel stuck, but I'm here to tell you that you can get your dreams, and there are lots of ways to do it. Whether your dreams is a massive homestead, a slightly medium-sized small holding, or just trying to feel a little bit more self-reliant and self-sufficient in your everyday life. In this video, I'm going to share with you 5 ways that you can start your homesteading and self-reliance dreams. No land required. They are easy, they are affordable, and they are perfect if you are in a small home, if you're in a rented home, or even if you're in a flat and you just want to kind of give it a go. And stick around to the end because the last one is absolutely my favourite and I think you're going to like it. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into tip number 1, which is all about growing food anywhere. So you can grow food anywhere. You can grow food even if you don't have access to any land. The easiest option in the UK for us is to see if we can get ourselves onto an allotment list or a community gardens list. And I know from personal experience that that is a great idea. We really enjoyed having our allotment, but the waiting lists are a huge amount of time. I know in the US, some of you guys have got like community gardens and things like that. So that can be a great idea as well. There are other options though. So things like growing on windowsills might actually seem to you a bit pointless, but there's loads of things that we can grow on windowsills. Remember, we're not aiming to be 100% self-sufficient straight away. What we actually want to do is get ourselves ready to do that. Learning to grow your own food takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort. I am nowhere near an expert at this. I'm working on it, but nowhere near an expert yet. But what we can do is actually learn the skills to get us there. And if that means that you're starting by popping a tomato plant on your windowsill, that is a great place to start. Actually, things like tomato plants and chilies and chives and microgreens, all of these things work really well on windowsills. And it's actually worth giving it a try because you will learn in really micro detail how to grow your food, how to understand what the pests are, how to understand how to modify your soil, all of those different things that matter. So growing in smaller spaces is super important. So we've talked about allotments, we've talked about windowsills. If you have a small garden or you have a small area to grow, like a balcony, for example, container gardening and vertical gardening is absolutely amazing. There's loads of things that we can trail upwards, which actually saves our space down below. So things like cucumbers and squashes and beans and peas. Peas are my favourite vegetable. These things all work really well growing upwards, and then we can use any space down below for growing other things. I talked in my last video about my plan this year to grow a lot more dwarf beans. I have grown dwarf beans in a window trough, but I'll tell you what, my dwarf beans did really, really well, and you can get quite a lot of stuff in them, and that again puts you right on the road to just growing your own little bits. Other things that are really useful to grow in these sorts of environments are things like our microgreens and our cut and come again lettuce. I absolutely love cut and come again lettuce. It's such a good idea. You can grow all sorts of different flavours, and it's amazing how many different flavoured lettuce is out there. And you're probably thinking, yeah, but lettuce is not that exciting. We can add it to soups, we can add it to stews, we can add it to sandwiches, we can add it to pasta dishes. You can dry it and then you're going to have your own, greens powder, that amazing stuff that they keep selling in health food stores for an incredible amount of money. All that kind of stuff is really important. And again, this is about getting you onto the steps of growing your own food and growing your ideas of self-reliance. So please look out for all of these different ways to actually get yourself onto that journey. There are some amazing creators, and I will try and see if I can tag some in the comments. One guy that pops up to my mind is the Cloud Gardener. Have a look for him on Instagram. I'll pop his handle down here somewhere. He's really cool. He has like a balcony in a city in the UK. I can't remember what city he lives in, but he grows so much. Last time I looked, he even had a little pond on his balcony in a container. It was incredible. So actually go and look at these people. It is incredible what you can do, and some people out there are really, really inspiring. Even ask a friend. This is actually something I didn't think about, so it's not even on my notes, but There are lots of people out there with slightly bigger garden spaces who would really like their own vegetables and food, but maybe they've got mobility issues, they might be old, they might just not have any time, or to be honest, they love the idea of having their own food, but they hate the idea of being outside in the garden because it's not for everyone. Get in touch with them and just be like, hey, can I have some of your garden space? You know, there's a lot that we get by just asking. Be prepared for them to say no. But if they're a friend of yours and you kind of go, I'd really like to grow some food. You have a garden. I don't. You're not really using your garden. Can I use your garden? Be also prepared to share things with them. So if you're going to go out and grow food in their garden, for example, you're going to stick a raised bed in or whatever, be prepared to, at the end of the season, or, you know, during the season, hey, do you want some cucumbers? Do you want some lettuce? Do you want some peas? I've made you some jam, that kind of thing. This stuff is really good, and it also fosters that sense of community, which is something that I think the gardening world is really good at, but I do think the rest of the world could really do with a good sense of community. There's a lot of bad news in the world, so, you know, fostering community is a good thing. So this is my sort of tip number one, is figure out how to grow food anywhere and with whatever land you have access to. Okay, section number two is all about preserving your food. So let's imagine that you've managed section number one really well. You've grown loads of your own stuff. You've even gone out and foraged. We'll talk about that at some other point. And you've got loads of stuff, but now you're going to preserve it. You've got to preserve it somehow. There are a few major ways to preserve things. Freezing is probably the easiest method that we can all do. Shove something into some sort of container and stick it in the freezer. But freezer space can be a bit of a premium, especially if you've not got a lot of space yourself. So other ways we can think of. Here in the UK, we are great at making jam. I swear strawberry jam is like one of our dishes. Strawberry jam and fish and chips, not together because that'd be weird. Jams, chutneys, they are really easy for beginners and you don't need any special equipment at all. I am a little bit of a rebel canner, so be aware of that. Hot jars, hot jam, stick it in, pop the lid on, and it should seal perfectly fine. And they'll be fine for like months on your shelf. So jam is dead easy. Chutney is done in pretty much the same way. There's lots of recipes. I'm going to try and go over some recipes later on this year for chutney because it's something I really want to get into. So jams and chutneys, dead simple. You don't need any special equipment. And cover your ears if you don't want to hear this. You can recycle your jars from the supermarket. I know, big thing there. If you're buying jars of anything in the supermarket, honestly, keep hold of them. So we bought mayonnaise jars, we bought mustard jars, all those kind of things, like mint sauce, all of those little tiny jars like that sort of big. I find they're the perfect size for my jam because I don't go through it enough and quick enough to be able to use it all. So recycle your jars from the supermarket, make jams, make chutneys. See if you can get into a little bit more. So if you want to invest in something like an Instant Pot or a pressure cooker of some description, you can get into canning. You can water bath can with literally just a saucepan and a lid, as long as it kind of covers the jar, you'll be fine. So you don't need any special equipment. One thing that people have in their houses more and more often now is an air fryer, and most air fryers will actually do dehydrating. So I am a huge fan of dehydrating. I think it's a great idea. We've had a dehydrator machine. I've literally had it for about 15 years. I have no idea where I got it from, but either way, I've had it for ages and it's been sitting in my kitchen. I use it loads. But you don't need one of those. You can use an air fryer. I've actually been using my air fryer for really low batch dehydrating. I stick it on for like 6 hours or whatever and it's done loads. My last batch of garlic powder I actually dehydrated in my air fryer. It was amazing. So if you've got access to an air fryer, you've probably got access to a dehydrator. Even that, you can hang things if you really want to. So things like hanging herbs and bits and pieces, great idea. If you're into dehydrating, you can then get into powdering. Powdering is great. So we can powder greens, we can powder fruit, we can powder vegetables and make stock. There we go. We're always thinking of ways. It's not just we've grown the food, great. We've grown the food, now we've preserved the food, great. We've grown the food, we've preserved the food. Now what are we going to put it into? This is the whole cycle of self-sufficiency is we start off with a thing, we make it into something else, we use it, we make it into something else, and it kind of becomes its own thing. And that's something really, really important to get into if you are going to try and aim to be self-sufficient. So Section number 2 is learn about preserving your food, dehydrating, canning up, jarring up, all that kind of stuff. You can go for pickling if you want to. We haven't talked about that, but pickling and fermenting, they are fairly easy to do. Even things like tincturing and preserving in alcohol and preserving in oil. There's loads of different ways. If you want a video on how we do lots of different preserving, let me know in the comments, because honestly, I feel like half of my house at the moment is preserved. It's great. I'm really enjoying it. So pop a little comment down below if you would like to see that. Okay, so section number 3 is all about how we're going to reduce waste. So remember, I've just talked to you about growing your own food, and I talked about preserving your own food. In the preparation of preserving your own food, you're probably going to have lots of waste, like, you know, vegetable clippings and all the rest of it, leftovers. And that's normal. Like, food waste, it gets a really bad rep because people waste stuff that they don't need to. I've seen people buy like a whole chicken, cook it up for dinner, chop the breasts off and then throw the rest away, and I'm like, what are you doing? But if you're thinking about doing your growing and your preserving, one thing you're going to need to grow is a good compost and good soil. And one thing that happens when you preserve stuff is generally you're prepping, which means you have vegetable peelings and other bits and pieces. So growing your own and preserving more means that we are going to end up with a little bit of waste, but we want to turn that into a saving by making compost. There's a few ways we can do it, even if you have a small space. So bokashi bins are amazing. I need to get one, actually. I've known some people with them and they're amazing. They basically sit on your worktop, so take the same amount of space as a council compost waste bin, which a lot of us have. And they use a kind of a fermentation process to make a compost-like material. You can't use it directly as compost, but it makes an amazing soil amendment. We actually built a wormery. I will link a video to that somewhere, wherever the videos get. We built a wormery, and it's great because your vegetable peelings, you can just chuck them in the wormery. The worms eat the vegetable peelings, and they give you two things. They give you worm castings, which again is like a compost, but it's a soil amendment. So you mix it with the compost and basically supercharge your compost. It's amazing. And the other thing that they give you is nicknamed worm pee. It's basically a liquid runoff from the wormery, and we use that as a fertilizer. So again, what we're doing is we're taking the waste products, we're turning it into something else that we can use, worm castings and worm pee. Absolutely amazing. And then we actually reduce the waste that we have as well. So that's something I think is really, really important if we waste less. I've also seen a huge rise in people using their food waste, like vegetable scraps and things, to create vegetable stock. And it's such a good idea. Again, a couple of ways we can do that. We can either boil it up like normal stock, so you save a load in your freezer, chuck it all in a bag in the freezer. When you've got a big old bag, stick it in a slow cooker or a pressure cooker, fill it up with water, boil it all up, and you've made yourself some stock. Even better, as long as the vegetable peelings and things are clean and there's no meat stuff in there, we can actually dehydrate them, same as the fruit preparation that we learned a minute ago. We can dehydrate them, chuck them into a blender, and now we've got vegetable powder that we can add to meals. We can use as a vegetable kind of stock. We can build it up that way, and we're not wasting anything. It is really a great idea to move towards zero waste cooking. I don't think anyone can be truly zero waste, but I definitely think we can move towards lower waste cooking, and that's an amazing way to do it. So number 3 is all about learning how to waste less and use the waste that you are creating. Okay, number 4 is all about moving away just a little bit from food and all about trying to be a little bit more sustainable in the way we live. So one of the things that I found talking to lots of like budding homesteaders like myself and like self-sufficiency dreamers and all the rest of it is most of us share not only that want to be slightly more self-reliant, but also that want to be a little bit more planet friendly. One of the main things that we can do is start to look at what we are using, like chemical wise, in our life, and figure out, is it actually necessary? So one of the things that is a really easy swap for most people is DIY cleaners. Things like vinegar and lemon and bicarb, they are 3 of the most natural cleaners you can get. Most of the time they're very, very eco-friendly, and we can make all sorts of cleaners out there. I've seen people using ivy leaves to make washing up liquid. I've seen people using conkers to make laundry liquid and other soaps like that. It's absolutely amazing. There's so many things that we can do and make our own eco-friendly versions. One of the things I made while I was living with my mum and dad, we had soap nuts and we made laundry liquid out of soap nuts, and it made really, really amazing laundry liquid. So here's a tip for you. A lot of people will try this kind of stuff. What happens is people make loads of it, like gallons of it, and then it goes mouldy because there's no preservatives in it. Really good tip I have for you is make enough that you're going to use in the next few days, and then all of the rest, freeze it in ice cube trays. The reason you do it in ice cube trays is you can stick 1 or 2 ice cubes in with your washing, and now you've got laundry liquid. It will defrost as it goes through the whole washing cycle, so that's absolutely fine, but you're not going to lose it to mould, and you don't have to put any preservatives in it. It doesn't take up that much space in your freezer as well. I generally tend to put mine in an ice cube tray, let it freeze, pop them out and stick it in a bag so you can kind of shove them in all the different corners in the freezer. Doesn't matter if they get kind of beaten up a little bit because your washing doesn't care. So things like DIY cleaners are a really, really great option to start your journey of being that little bit more self-sufficient. So number 4 is all about trying to be a little bit more sustainable in the way we do things. Kind of approach things with, can I make that? That's my approach for most things. Can I make that? Can I do that? And find a way to do it if possible. Okay, number 5, I did tell you was my favourite, and hopefully this is why you're here actually. So number 5 is all about being a continuous learner, but I have a few tips for you. So first thing is, go beyond the big influencers. I realise that I'm not a big influencer, so maybe I'm saying spend a bit more time with me. Yeah, maybe. No, I'm kidding. Go beyond the big influencers. Learn from lots of different people. Watch their stuff, learn from their stuff, read their books, read their blogs, whatever it is. It's really, really important to learn from a diverse set of people and a diverse set of skills, because that is something that is really, really going to do you well on your journey to becoming a little bit more self-sufficient. There are also lots and lots of groups that are popping up. So we've got gardening groups, you've got all sorts of different skill groups, like my mum goes to a quilting group, bless her, and there's lots of these little circles around. Go and join them. I'm sure you'll meet other crazy people just like you that are really good at it. If you have someone that bakes really amazing cakes, for example, ask them if you can spend a few hours baking a cake and they can tell you all the secrets. Take a notebook, it's really important. That kind of thing. Ask people and learn from people. Really important if you're trying to do a more self-sufficient lifestyle. And the last bit in this section of tips is really need to be thinking about trying things. I am a great believer in trying the small things and seeing if it works, because you might find something that you're really good at and that you really enjoy doing that you had no idea. What I find a lot of people have is they have almost like a fear of starting, like, oh, it's too difficult, it's too complicated, I don't know what I'm doing. And they want to do lots of things, but they don't know where to start, and it's a little bit scary to start. And if you are one of those people that is a little bit scared to start and wants to try a few little things, but doesn't want to jump in straight away, I have something that's going to be really, really helpful for you. Over the last few months, I have been working on a project called Grow, Make, Learn. This is going to be a monthly subscription box to help people get into self-reliance and homesteading skills, along the theory of every month there'll be something to grow, there'll be a project for you to make, and then there'll be lots of digital downloads and resources sent to you. It is really in the early phases at the moment, and I would really love it if you are interested. Pop along to the website and join our waiting list. I'm hoping to be launching it towards the end of spring. It does all kind of depend on my house move, and it is purely me that's doing it, no one else. So it's going to be a fun project, and now I've been really honest about it, I kind of need to start it. A little bit scary, but I'm really hoping it's going to help people just like you with limited time, limited space, limited land, to actually get into growing their own food, making things from scratch, and learning how to be more self-sufficient and self-reliant, because it's something that I'm really passionate about and something that I'm hoping that you guys are really passionate about as well. So pop along to Grow, Make, Learn, sign yourself up for the waiting list. I'll be really excited to see you there. But hopefully you have enjoyed this video. I really hope it has been helpful to you. If you have any tips of your own, if you have any comments, if you have anything else you want to share, do put them in the comments below. The comment section is always amazing on my videos. I'm really impressed by how involved people get. I absolutely love reading your comments, so do pop them below, because I want to read them and I try and reply to as many as possible depending on, you know, like time and everything. But it's been really cool to learn from you guys as well. So hopefully that was helpful to you. Thank you so much for joining me. It is absolutely wonderful to have you here. I can't wait to see you in the next video. I'll see you next time. Bye.